me to extend best wishes each of you for a bright and successful new year before we get started. Honorable Minister Collin Croal, Honorable Minister Susan Rodrigues, the CEO of Central Housing and Planning Authority, CEO of Guyana Water Incorporated, Board Chairman and Senior Management of CHPA, GWI and the Ministry, and citizens who are tuning in on Facebook, television and radio, and of course, our esteemed members of the media. Good morning again and welcome to the 2024 end of year press conference of the Ministry of Housing and Water. My name is Bishram Kupen. I'm the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Housing and Water, and I'll be the moderator for today's event. This press conference is being held to update you and our citizens on the remarkable achievements of the Ministry of Housing and Water and its agencies in the past year, and to highlight the significant beneficial impact which our housing and water development programs have on our people and our country as a whole. In addition, our ministers will share the ministry's and the government's vision for the housing and water sectors for 2025 and beyond. The format for this press conference will be in the form of presentations to be done by Honorable Minister Croal and Honorable Minister Susan Rodrigues on the achievements in the housing and water sectors. Following these presentations, the floor will be open for a question and answer session where members of the media will have the opportunity to field questions. I will explain the format for the Q&A session when we get to that point. Minister Susan Rodrigues will make a presentation on the achievements of the ministry in the water sector and the outlook for 2025 and beyond. And this will be followed by a presentation by Honorable Minister Collin Croal on the achievements of the ministry in the housing sector in 2024, and also the ministry's vision and outlook for 2025 and beyond. At this point, it gives me great pleasure to invite Honorable Minister Susan Rodrigues to deliver the first presentation on the wide-ranging achievements in the water sector through the Guyana Water Incorporated. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, P.S. Copen. Allow me to acknowledge my colleague, Minister Croal, CEO of Guyana Water Inc., Mr. Sheikh Baksh, all of the program heads and heads of department and directors of CHPA and GWI, members of the media. It has been a remarkable 4 years of achievements at the Ministry of Housing and Water. I have said this publicly before, and I will say it again, that I am very proud to be serving in this sector at this time. As a young female minister, it gives me great joy to be in a cabinet and in a government that values the contribution of young people, that prioritizes commitments to our promises, and that continues to deliver every single day for the people of our country. It is a track record that I proudly stand behind. And any day of the week, you will see me defending this ministry and the achievements of our government. We take our promises and our commitments to the people of this country extremely seriously. And in spite of all of the detractors and distractions that go on social media, and the energy that we have to exert to fight those distractions every day, we do that, and we are still very focused on the metrics that we committed to delivering for the people. And so this morning, you will hear a very comprehensive, measurable presentation from both myself and Minister Croal, covering both sectors, the housing and water sector. And before I go into my presentation, I would like to take this opportunity as well to thank all of the public servants who work in these two sectors, at CHPA, at GWI, at the Ministry of Housing and Water. We are extremely grateful that you have committed along with us to the plans in both of the sectors, and without your hard work and devotion to our targets, we would not have been able to achieve it. And so I would like to thank all of the public servants in both of these sectors who have been very instrumental in ensuring that our targets are met. Moving on to my substantive presentation in the water sector. If we were to go back for just a brief while to what we found in 2020, if we're using 2020 as the baseline year, let's go back to the water sector that we took over in 2020. The Guyana Water Inc. was in a poor shape, financially and in the way it delivered services to the people of our country. The company was bankrupt, and bank balances had been significantly reduced during the 5 years of the previous government. There was no subvention given by central government for 5 years to support the operations of GWI. And so it had owed GPL about $7 billion over that 5-year period. The company owed hundreds of millions of dollars to its suppliers. There was no comprehensive maintenance plan for the water treatment plants or to pump stations, and this resulted in people across the country receiving poor level of service and poor quality of water. There was no inventory at GWI. The inventory was zero. There were no meters, no fittings, no spares. None of these to maintain the assets of the company, and therefore many of the assets fell into disrepair. The company was not adhering to procurement rules and had several breaches of the procurement laws, including for the procurement of a chemical called Sequest to temporarily treat water for iron content. Now, that was a very expensive endeavor, and it was a temporary intervention to treat water for iron content. I will demonstrate how we have brought back this company to a very viable financial position, how our assets are being maintained through a regular maintenance plan, and I will also demonstrate how our water treatment plant for the coastal regions have provided a permanent solution to the treatment for iron content, as opposed to the temporary and expensive one that was undertaken during the previous government. So, what did we promise? And as I was preparing for this press conference, I went back to the commitments we made in our manifesto to improve access to and enhance the quality of water. And for those who are watching, they can refer to page 37 of the People's Progressive Party Civic Manifesto of 2020. So we committed to several things. One, that we will ensure that water rates remain affordable. And we have done so. We all know the situation post-COVID and the increases in prices, especially for fuel. And the government of Guyana made an intervention to absorb all of these increases for fuel so that this is not passed on to our consumers or to our customers in the water sector. Fuel is one of our main inputs, and had the increase been applied, and the company or the customers would have had to absorb that, it would have increased tariffs. So the main input on which we run our generators and pumps and our water treatment plants, it would have been an expensive endeavor, and that could have been passed on to the customers, but the government made a decision to absorb those increases in fuel prices, and so we maintained affordable tariffs. As a matter of fact, we reduced water tariffs by 5% since we came back into government from 2020. You would recall that under the previous government, there were 2 tariff increases, 2, which totaled about 100% increase in water tariffs during those 5 years. So that's one. Secondly, we committed to reinstating water subsidy to our pensioners. You would recall that the APNU AFC removed the subsidy to pensioners. The same party now that speaks about people-centered and about caring for our pensioners and about caring for everybody under the sun, they took away very callously the water subsidy to our pensioners. We have reinstated the water subsidy, and we did so immediately when we came back into government. Thirdly, we promised to expand treated water for more areas. And immediately when we came back into government, we developed a strategic plan to expand treated water across the coastal regions. And I will return because I have to expand on this a little bit. Fourthly, we promised to upgrade the distribution and transmission of water in urban, rural, and hinterland areas. And again, I will return to this point because there's a lot that can be said of what we've done over the last 4 years. Fifthly, to reduce losses in the distribution system. In 2020, our non-revenue water was 70%, and we have since reduced that to 63%, so that 76% of customers, 76% of all of our customers are metered. In the last 4 years, we have installed 70,000 new meters to customers. This helps in terms of monitoring the use of water, and we have also had a very expansive program to ensure that we repair leaks in a timely manner, and we have done so expeditiously over the last 4 years, which has contributed to the reduction in water loss and has helped to improve the quality of water that people receive. And it has been very challenging in the last 4 years to deal with a lot of disruptions in our transmission system because, as you know, the country is undergoing tremendous transformation in the construction sector. Everywhere you go, you see construction, whether it's road construction or any infrastructure work, and this has severely disrupted a lot of our network, and we have to keep constantly responding to emergencies when errant contractors sometimes break our pipes or dig up our transmission or distribution mains, and we have to constantly, on a daily basis, be responding to reports of leaks across the country. This has put a lot of strain on us, but we have been responding as fast as possible to help to reduce losses in the system and to restore the level of service to our customers. And finally, we promise to create the institutional mechanisms to rationalize the country's water resources through an integrated water resource management framework over the next 5 years, which is from 2020 to 2025. Very recently, we have re-established the National Water Council to deliver on this commitment in the water sector, and also in keeping with the Water and Sewerage Act, Chapter 3001. This Water Council consists of representatives from the NDIA, from the EPA, GWI, Hydromet, the private sector, and includes a water management specialist. So we have reestablished this council who will work on a national water policy and make recommendations on how we can rationalize the country's water resources through a more integrated water resource management framework. So we look forward to the recommendations for the future. So returning now to the commitments we made on access to water and on water treatment. So the proportion of population with access to reliable supply of potable water is 98.3%. And with regards to increasing access to potable water supply to unserved communities, so these are unserved communities, communities that do not have a reliable source of water or a potable source of water. So to increase this, increasing access to potable water supply to unserved communities through the extension of distribution mains, more than 4,350 households benefited from first-time access in the year 2023. In 2024, some 2,800 residents benefited for the first time from first-time access to potable water supply under the Unserved Areas Program. So across the country, there may be areas where people have extended their occupancy in different areas, and the distribution network did not reach those areas. And so we have a program to provide first-time access, and in all of the communities across the country, in all of the regions, we have consistently made resources available to extend our network to cater for these residents. And sometimes in an area, it's just 2 or 3 households that we have to extend the network for them to benefit. And so we have an ongoing program to address access to water. Then we promised, as I mentioned, to expand treated water. And so in 2020, we developed the Coastal Water Treatment Program 2021 to 2025. This was phase 1 of that program, and we are on track to ensuring that we achieve 90% treated water coverage on the coastline by the end of 2025. In 2020, when we did the assessment of the total population that is receiving treated water, it was 52%. And so the strategic plan was developed to ensure that we increase treated water coverage from 52% to 90%. And we are on track to ensuring that that is delivered by the end of 2025. So what were the components of the program? The first is to build 7 new large water treatment plants. All 7 of these water treatment plants are under construction and are close to completion. The second was to upgrade 12 existing water treatment plants, which are also close to completion or will be completed in a few months. Third, installation of more than 200 kilometers of new transmission mains, which is all expected to be completed by June 2025. So for the benefit of the public who is listening, because I know that on the coast, the complaint has not been so much about access to water, but about access to clean water, or treated water, or water without iron content. So the communities that will benefit from treated water after the construction of the 7 new large water treatment plants are in the following areas. So one is being constructed in Region 2 on the Neming, and this will benefit 18,880 residents. Region 3 at Parfait Harmony, this will benefit 35,964 Guyanese. At Parika, with 6,924 beneficiaries. At Wales, with 12,624 beneficiaries. At Caledonia on the East Bank, with 12,372 beneficiaries. At Bachelor's Adventure on the East Coast, with 28,944 beneficiaries. And at Cummins Lodge, with 24,164 beneficiaries, bringing it to a total of 139,872 Guyanese that will receive treated water after the completion of the 7 new large water treatment plants. Then we have the upgrades of 12 existing plants, and those are being done at Fellowship, Port Royne, Virgin Nugent, Better Hope, Monrepo, Friendship, Eccles, Covent Garden, Grove, Cotton Tree, New Amsterdam, and Port Morant, with a total of 34,840 beneficiaries after the completion of these upgrades to 12 existing water treatment plants. Then we have the other component, which is 18 small iron removal plants. These are being done at Region 2 in Linosan, Region 4, Agricola, LBI, Sparendam, and Lusignan. Region 5 at Weldad, Farm, Calcutta, Strathcampbell, Perseverance, Dehoop, and Ithaca. Region 6, Johanna, Mibikuri, Crabwood Creek, number 62 to number 74, Chesney, and Edinburgh, giving us total beneficiaries of 75,576 persons. These small iron treatment plants and the new water treatment plants are currently in the testing phase, and the plants are expected, the large water treatment plants are expected to be fully operational by March of 2025. And similarly, by the end of the first quarter of 2025, we expect that all of the upgrades to the existing treatment plants will also be completed. I went through that so that I can demonstrate that the 90%, the promise of delivering 90% treated water coverage is measurable. And that is why we developed the program in such a way where you have several components which caters for the existing population, and we're catering for the increase in the population as we go forward to 2026 and beyond. And so if you look at, and we have, unfortunately I can't show you the graphs that I'm looking at, but if you look at the baseline year, where I mentioned in 2020 we had 52% treated water coverage. We had 28 water treatment plants that existed in the year 2020, which was delivering 52% coverage. And we can measure the steady increase from 2020 and the increase we had as the years go by in 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and now by the end of 2025, we will be able to serve 676,582 beneficiaries. So that will be the total number of the population being served via a water treatment plant, 676,582 persons. And we have increased the number of water treatment plants from 28 in 2020 to 54 in 2025, which means that we have increased by 26 new treatment plants we have developed in the last 5 years, within the last 5 years. So this progress is measurable. It is there for all to see. And I know that over the last 4 years, there have been many complaints about the quality of water on the coastline, that is regions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, and 10. And people may think that it is not being addressed, but it is. And we have spoken ad nauseum about this. But I know sometimes people are not paying enough attention. It's not being adequately reported in the media, and people are not reading. And so it's important that people get this information so they can understand that in a few short months, they will see all of this investment and all of the projects that we have been working on for the last 4 years come to fruition. When they start to see clean water flowing through their taps and the days of receiving water with iron content are permanently over, then they will realize that all this time we have been working, that our contractors have been working, that GWI has been working very diligently, guided by the strategic plan that is governing these first 5 years in office. So in the next 4 months, all of these will come into operation, and 676,582 residents or Guyanese will be receiving treated water on the coastline. Additionally, we have signed contracts for 5 large water treatment plants funded by the Caribbean Development Bank, and this will be implemented under the second phase of the Coastal Water Treatment Program. This is being funded to the tune of $12 billion. Contracts have been signed, and construction or work is expected to commence this month, January 2025. Looking forward to the future, we have already drafted a strategic investment plan, which is phase 2 of the coastal water treatment program that will guide the water sector from 2025 to 2028. This has already been developed and will address gaps in the network and cater for the expanding housing program. This strategic investment plan is valued at $28.3 billion. So this will guide the future years. Under this program, we are expected to drill 15 new wells, construct 4 surface water treatment plants, 2 iron removal plants, and 3 inline filters. And under this phase 2 of the program, we will be catering for about 253,788 persons who will benefit from the second phase of this program. And I did mention that I will get back to the upgrade of the distribution and transmission in the city. So that covered the coastal water treatment program. So in terms of upgrading our transmission and distribution network, those who live in the city, especially in Georgetown, would have seen over the last few years GWI working in the city and sometimes inconveniencing a lot of people. That's the reality. We're digging up the roads and you're wondering what is happening. So what we are doing is upgrading the aged infrastructure in the city. The network is over 100 years old. And we are drilling new wells, we are upgrading our pump stations, we are raising the level of service, that is the PSI, and we want to deliver that level of service to the people in the city. But we are unable to do so with the existing old infrastructure. And so this is a very expensive program. It takes a lot of time, it's very time consuming, and it can be very inconveniencing to the public. But I wanted to take a minute to just explain to the public what we are doing is not random. It is all part of the infrastructure upgrade for the city. And we have completed many areas already. We did Republic Street from Epping Avenue to Lamaha Street. We are currently doing Broad Street to Pegasus Hotel. You will see us working around the area by the Pegasus, by the Marriott along High Street. We completed Church Street from Shelter Belt down Church Street. We completed all the way up to East Street. And we plan to proceed this year from East Street all the way down to Bank of Guyana. We did Cemetery Road from Square of the Revolution to Sussex Street. And so far we've spent about $2 billion to upgrade this transmission system. And we have to continue this upgrade this year in 2025. And so we are proposing to continue from Lamaha Street to David Street in the Kitty area there. Water Street from Church Street to Marriott Hotel. We plan to do along David Street from Sheriff Street to Vicinjon Road, and Brick Dam from Square of the Revolution to Avenue of the Republic. This will be cost about $1.5 billion, and this is what we will be proposing for this year's budget, pending approval through the National Assembly, of course. So this will all help to upgrade the water distribution network in the city, which would allow the pipes to be replaced and would allow our customers, especially in the city of Georgetown, to receive a higher level of service, which is higher water pressure. and also clean water, as the infrastructure will be less likely to leak once it's replaced with the new infrastructure. Yeah, some of the other areas include Sobrianville, Bel Air, and Atlanticville also that will benefit from the upgrades of the transmission. And finally, I want to turn now to hinterland water. We have spent more than $5.5 billion. We've invested more than $5.5 billion in the hinterland from August 2020 to present. We have allocated $2.1 billion in the year 2024 to improve access to water in the hinterland. During the period 2015 to 2020, under the APNUAFC government, 45% of the hinterland population had access to water. Similarly, as we did on the coast, we developed a strategic plan for hinterland water in keeping with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 6, access to clean water. And we have set ourselves a target of ensuring that we achieve 100% access to water in the hinterland by the end of 2025. And we are very much on track to ensuring that that commitment in the water sector in the hinterland regions is achieved. In 2020, the spread in coverage was 38% in Region 1, so I can even break it down by regions and show you what the situation was in 2020 and what it has been improved to now. So water coverage was 38% in Region 1, 55% in Region 7, 55% in Region 8, and 60% in Region 9. For the period 2021 to 2024, under the PPPC administration, 91% of the population of the hinterland has access to water, with more than 90% access in every region. More than 90% access in every region. So that 38% in Region 1 is over 90% today, 4 years later. The 55% in Region 7, similarly, all of the regions, over 90% access to water in 4 years. So as I mentioned, it is targeted for 100% access to water by the end of 2025 in all hinterland regions. Therefore, no segment of the population will be left without access and supply. As a result of the works, there is significant improvement in the livelihood of women and children because of the increased access. Far off areas that are unable to benefit, that will be unable to benefit from the network, will be provided with tanks for water storage from rainwater harvesting. You know, there's a unique situation in the hinterland where, in the hinterland regions, where some households are very spread out in the communities, and you may have 1 or 2 households that are far from the main area in the community, and so the pipeline or the network is unable to reach them. And for those very small number of households, we're ensuring that we deliver tanks to those houses so that they can, or those families, so that they can do rainwater harvesting. We are also training the CSOs, 2 CSOs in all of these communities across the hinterland regions in maintenance of our GWI network so that the people in the communities can receive continued access to clean water supply. More than 100 new wells have been completed from 2020 to now to provide service to more than 15,000 persons for the first time in the hinterland. 56 wells were completed in 2024 alone. So we have gotten more efficient in our well drilling activities and in delivering services through GWI. And we continue to partner with the village communities as well to ensure that we bring some economic activities to these Amerindian communities by partnering with them to help us to construct or to build out the network in these areas. So we provide some employment to the people of the local economy in those villages through GWI, and they help in laying out the pipe network or the distribution network from these new wells to the households in those communities. This also gives them a sense of ownership over the network. They tend to understand the network where the pipes are laid, and they're very eager to help us to support the maintenance of the network so that they and their communities can have the lasting service from these wells that are intended to last for decades. If we were to compare that, or the investments that we've made in the water sector to that made in the 2015 to 2020 period, you will see that there simply is no comparison. So, for example, in Region 1, the APNU AFC government spent $12,471 per capita in Region 1. So this is per person in Region 1 to deliver clean water. We are spending $24,304 per capita in that region for access to clean water. In Region 7, a region that they claim to love and support, they spent $6,140 per person, per capita. $6,140. We are spending $59,691 per capita for people to have access to clean water in Region 7. And I can go down the list. In Region 9, they spent $8,847 for 5 years per person to get clean water. We are spending $65,918. So the aggregate investment that they made per capita in the hinterland for those 5 years was $9,787. We are spending more than $34,000 per person in the hinterland, or have spent that over the last 4 years. So this is how we demonstrate love and care and commitment. Because it's not just about making investment or spending money. It's being able to demonstrate that the spending or the investment that we have made has translated to the improvement of the quality of life of people in the hinterland regions and all across this country. And that's why I took the time to measure for you the baseline from 2020, the investments we have made in the last 4 years and will continue to make, and how it has tangibly improved the lives of the people of our country. So this is not wasteful spending. You know, they say sometimes that we're spending too much infrastructure, too much on infrastructure. This is infrastructure. This is infrastructure that improves quality of life, that gives people a higher standard of living, especially in the hinterland where people in the past have had to walk for miles to access clean water, that face significant challenges during a dry period when there was no rain for them to harvest water. And now they have wells situated in the center of their communities and many households with direct connections to their homes for the first time. And this is a result of the investment in the water sector. And people on the coast, similarly with the interventions we are making for the construction of water treatment plants, upgrading the networks, the small iron content removal plants, will see the people on the coastline, 90% of those people who live on the coastline, will be receiving clean water, treated water, and will no longer have the challenges of dealing with the iron content in the water, bringing them, the people on the coast, improved access to clean water and a better quality of life. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Susan Rodrigues, for your presentation on the ministry's work, GWI's work in the water sector, and also highlighting the benefits to our citizens and the quality of life issues. So thank you once again. At this point in time, I'd like to invite Honorable Minister Collin Croal to deliver his presentation on the remarkable achievements of the ministry in the housing sector through the Central Housing and Planning Authority. Minister Collin Croal.
Thank you very much, Permanent Secretary Kupin. Acknowledgement, Minister Rodrigues, CEO of GWI, Mr. Baksh and his team. I also want to recognize the various heads from the Central Housing and Planning Authority, led by the Director of Operations and acting for the CEO, Ms. Denise Tudor and her team. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, a Happy New Year to all of you. And the pleasure is ours to, for the next hour or so maybe, for us to outline on this wonderful sector called the housing and water sector. I know I must also say thank you for throughout the year for you to have been staying the course, and you have also been playing your role in highlighting not only just achievements but also to help us in sometimes to resolve issues or matters as they come up. And as persons who are working in the media, you're directly involved with responses from the communities. And so sometimes you yourselves, you call to follow up on issues that we are not aware of, and it allows us to resolve those. So you've just had a presentation on the water sector, so I'll just outline for you here now in terms of housing, what has taken place over the last year, and a projection of what is expected to come, and what also overall we've been able to achieve as part of our commitment in this period. And the housing sector is one whereby, yes, we came to you, we came to the population, we've committed a program, we've outlined our overarching targets, and we've been repeating those. And so it's important now that we've completed 2024, and we're less than a year in terms of completing the 5-year term, current term. It's so important for us to assess where we are. And so I want to say that for the housing sector, we've had a robust year. In fact, I'll make this bold statement, is that there has been no busier period, there has been no more active period than what we've achieved in 2024 for both sectors. But this is I'm reporting on housing, for housing. And the staff are here, and I want to, the heads that is, I want to thank them and their staff for the many overtime and many beyond the call of duty time they have provided for us to be able to accomplish what we've achieved throughout this period. And oftentimes, what is highlighting is when somebody has an issue, when there's somebody wants to probably have themselves heard, and oftentimes we don't talk about the people who are behind the scenes to ensure that the work is delivered. I want to therefore start off by dealing with our allocations, and so I'll identify the heads under which I'll speak and then give you some pointers. For allocations, which has been a forefront in terms of our activities for housing, and something you have been monitoring too, because you've been attending many of our public Dream Realize activities, you've been attending many of our outdoor activities for which we've had to respond. And in terms of allocations, we started the year looking at a target, and that is to achieve a minimum of 10,000 within the calendar year. And this is one of our manifesto commitment that says, and I quote, 10,000 lots annually. And we have been able to accomplish that for this year. So in fact, for the year of 2024, we have accomplished a total of 10,791 allocations in this calendar year. That therefore means that overall, we have crossed the 40,000 line, so we are about 40,290 allocations. And this figure I'm giving you refers specifically to lots in terms of residential. So it does not take into consideration or other aspect in terms of commercial allocations. And so even that, if you take that into consideration, you will realize we're much more. We've actually allocated about 11,000 in total. But commercial lots is an ongoing activity, and we do have, up to a week ago, we would have approved a number of commercial requests. But the figures I'm giving you will be specifically to residential lots. And so in terms of our allocation, therefore, this has been the most successful year. And so therefore, 27% of our allocations, overall allocations, was done in the year of 2024. And I want to allow me therefore to also give you some analysis in terms of how this was done. Our two largest regions, and you'll recognize based on the population and based on our requests and pending applicants, are regions 3 and 4. And so overall, 61% of the allocations were done for region 4, and 22% of those allocations were done for region number 3. And those are our two largest regions. So by regions, therefore, 2% for region 2, 5% for region 5, 5% for region 6, another 2% on region 9, and 4% on region 10. This is 4% of our overall 40,000 plus allocations I am referring to. And if I also give you some further analysis, very often we speak about women empowerment, gender equality. Our analysis of the allocations that were done will show that 46% of those allocations were done to females. Let me repeat. 46% of the allocations were to females. And I'm not talking about joint applicants. The joint applicants is actually 26%. And so obviously by subtraction, their male allocations was 28% of the applicants. And that speaks a lot in terms of also very often when we talk about equality, talk about independence, and it augurs well too in terms of the social fabric of our country. Another bit of analysis I want to give you is in terms of the age bracket. So if one is to use the definition of youth below 35, well, therefore, 53% of the allocants are below 35, 53%. And if we're in the next bracket between 36 to 50, 32% of the allocants, and 51 and above, 15%. What is the message behind this? The message behind this, and many of you here, well, most of you hear from the media, are from the younger generation. It therefore means when you were growing up in your household, and you looking back and you would have heard your parents speaking about lack of opportunities in terms of being able to benefit from an allocation of a house lot and how long one will have to wait, etc. But now once you're 21 and above and you apply at some point in time in terms of our criteria, and our criteria that we've been prioritizing has been 2019 and prior, and that has been consistent. However, as lands become available in other regions, we have been able to raise the level of the expectation. So for example, Region 3, as a priority, we have been allocating 2021 and prior. And with our plan to come, which I'll give you at the end of this presentation, you will look at the outline of what one can expect for those who are in the system. But you have an opportunity, therefore, at a much younger age to be able to be allocated and similarly to move onwards to a mortgage and to be able to build and own your own home and have your own family, to start your own family. So that tells in terms of the development of our country and the transcending in terms of family development as well as wealth generation, that the younger population obviously has that equal opportunity. In terms of the allocations, if one was to look at the categories, because what we normally have is identified in low income, moderate, middle, high. So if one was to look below middle income, which would be between low and moderate, 72% of that 40,000 plus were from below the middle income bracket. In fact, low income is 43%. That again tells you a story, because very often you hear the comment about, in terms of only particular bracket in terms of housing can be dealt with or are being addressed. Far, far from the reality. The reality is that everyone is dealt with equally. The reality is that there's a system by which we're working with, and so therefore, regardless of our appearance and regardless of our background, one is addressed once you are a pending applicant and within a particular period. The middle income bracket is 19% of the persons we have allocated, and the high income, less than 10%, 9% in fact, of the persons that are allocated are from the high income bracket. And so we'll understand when we're talking also about bridging and ensuring that at all level one can have that equal opportunity and raising the level of standard, you'll realize where majority of our allocations were done for. Moving on quickly, I also want to say to you that in terms of our expectation moving forward, because we have committed, if we said 10,000 annually, it means what? 50,000 by year 5. That means we have a gap of 10,000. We will be surpassing 50,000 in the year of 2025. In fact, we will be more than surpassing the 50,000. So in the year of 2025, we will allocate far more than 10,000 that we have done under our target for the annual figure. And for the regions, we are working, there's a team that working assiduously to be able to acquire additional lands to allow us to be able to do this. And so, for example, speaking about acquisition, in the calendar year of 2024, we have been able to acquire over 4,900 acres of land for housing development. And that is just in 1 year. And so one will understand the magnitude of the task ahead, the magnitude that is involved in terms of land acquisition to be able to do these allocations. And I think this goes over to the head of many of the beneficiaries as well as many citizens, because you very often hear the term, yes, Guyana has a lot of land, or we have a lot of land in the terms of unused, and where persons are congregated or reside over a particular area, whether it's a coastland. But the reality is it costs money to develop these areas. And these are virgin lands that we are developing because you have zero infrastructure. And in many of the areas now, because of where we're going, because we have to move beyond the forest depth, we have saturated the forest depth of land area, so we have to go beyond that. And when you go beyond the forest depth, very often you're going into swampland too. Very often you're going into land that may have been flooded for years. And so the drainage and irrigation system has to be developed and designed. And this is done not in isolation. This is done in consolidation with our project department and the Drainage and Irrigation Authority. And so it's a lot of work that goes into developing an area. And for example, we have, as a result, in the 4-year period since we are now back in office, we have developed over 75 new housing areas. Over 75 new housing areas. In fact, for 2024, 19 areas, new housing areas were developed in 2024. And I can give you some examples. Region 3, Wales. Region 4, for example, Good Hope. LBI, Two Friends, Lusignan, Nonpareil, Enterprise. Yarra-Cabra on the highway. Region 5, Waterloo. Region 6, Palmyra. Region 10, Amelia's Ward, Fitzhope. And on Susdike, Harrooni. And so those are the areas that we've been able to develop under the period for 2024. What has been achieved prior to that? Prior to that, under 2015 to 2020, only 3 areas were developed. 3, and I named them because I would like to be challenged. Peters Hall, Prospect Track E, and Providence. A total of 1,258 lots were developed between 2015 to July 2020. Even in terms of allocations, what we've achieved in 1 year for this year alone, 2024, prior to that was 7,528. And so one will understand the level of work that is being done by Ministry of Housing. And similarly, I make this point because the staffing, except for the first year, the staffing remains the same throughout the last 3 years. They're doing much more work now and with a similar level of staff. In 2019, just to give a context of how serious the APNU was about this sector, notwithstanding that you didn't have a Ministry of Housing, you had a Ministry of Housing that was departmentalized under Ministry of Communities. In 2019 was the very first time when budget was given for housing development. Some of the schemes that we have allocated throughout this period of 2024 includes in Wales in Region 3, similarly LBI on East Coast, Palmyra in Region 6, Silica City, for which work is ongoing, and a number of other areas on the East Coast that we can go into should you require some additional information. I want to now move to regularization and the work that is being done by our Community Development Department. This is a topic right here at Parliament, only I think 2 weeks ago, when we had the debate on the land acquisition. You have an opposition that speaks so much to talk about care for people and how much they so love the citizens. Well, let me tell you what has been done under this period. We have regularized 17 areas in 3.5 years. Those 17 areas equates to 1,571 lots. We have relocated, so I'm separating the regularization from relocating because a regularization will mean the persons We have made a policy decision that is an area where the land is being occupied that can be regularized. We have relocated 430 persons, or 430 to 430 lots. In 2025, we intend to accomplish another 987. So what are some of those areas that we're referring to? Regularization for the 17 areas include Greenwich Park in Region 3, the Kindred Parcel 1, Tushan Railway Lands, Company Park, Iflot, Bachelor's Adventure here on the east coast of Demerara, Chatamargo. This was done in 2022. In 2023, Virgin Railway South called Acme, Good Hope Railway Embankment, this is here on the east coast. Portions of the railway reserve at Plantation Annandale, that's here on the east coast. Portions of Block E, Christianborg and Wismar, Linden, that's Blueberry Hill. The rear of Conception Fitzhope, Parcel 3, that's in Amelia's Ward. Similarly, for 2024, with the year that we are referring to what we've just accomplished, Plantation De Willem, Plantation Barnwell, Plantation Philadelphia, and Plantation De Andra. 1 area in Region 2, 10 in Region 3, 4 in Region 4, and 2 areas in Region number 10. What are some of the areas we expect to address in 2025 in terms of our regularization? These include Lima Sands Housing Scheme, 35 lots, Paradise Gyp, and this is Region 2 we're referring to, Walton Hall, another 60. So we're expecting a minimum of 95 lots in Region 2. And I'm giving you a minimum. This is a minimum target that has been achieved by that has been set by the community development, but we'll be giving them much more. Region 3, Plantation Best Reserves, another 59. Here in Region 4, in Success, 43. Mocha Arcadia, 209. And I'm going to repeat this because repeatedly I've heard a lot of directed and willful misinformation. There are 2 aspects of Mocha. There is what is called the Mocha Arcadia, and Mocha Arcadia will be south of where you know the existing Mocha regular residents live. That portion, there's a portion of land where we are going to regularize, and our numbers that we have checked and based, meaning they have gone to the ground and they have done the assessment of 209. And then there's another portion of which would be, for us when we're driving in, would be the back, but would be east of the current Mocha. Those persons are already getting their title for the very first time. Moving on, Enmore BZ, Enmore Newtown. So combined, that's another 76 lots, persons to benefit. Enmore Hope, another 75. Vigilance South, Vigilance North, College North, Diendrach, south of Railway, Enterprise Block 8, Enterprise Market Street. So in all for Region 4, a minimum of 700 occupants will be regularizing. Region 6, Belvedere North, Hampshire, another 57. Region 10, Aichuni, 76. New Harden, 30. Comaka, 154. Silver Hill, 25. West Watuka, 93. Block E and F, Kansas City, 150. Block F, Wismar, 53. Green Valley, Wismar, 39. Siberian, 47. A total of 667 lots minimum are targeted to be regularized in Region number 10 in the year of 2025. What is the message I want to leave there? The message I want to leave there, contrary to what has been peddled, our regularization program has a criteria. And that does not take into consideration how persons look or persons' political affiliation. That takes into consideration, one, our love for the people of Guyana and the citizens of Guyana. And similarly, we have said no new squatting will be regularized, but your government is cognizant of what we've inherited. And what we inherited was a program whereby, and I say a program, where persons were encouraged to willfully squat. And I'll give you an example at Amelia's Ward, Region 10, where, for example, in our second year, we would have allocated a total of 400 plus lots. But it took a while for the infrastructure work to be done, because persons were encouraged who were squatting to squat first of all, and then encouraged not to move. That prevented the infrastructure, the access for the infrastructure work to start. Those are not people who really care for citizens, because when we squat or when we occupy a land, one, obviously you don't have ownership. Two, you won't have access to legal utility services. Three, security of tenure is not assured, because the future of you and whoever else are occupying those areas illegally can be dealt with. And likewise, your children's future is not secure. So we have been saying no new squatting will be recognized, but your government is working to ensure that we are in a position and we are able to address what we have met. And I want to recognize the work being done by the Community Development Department, because they have gone into all of those areas. And what they've done, when you see them number the houses or the building that is there, the numbering is not to say that it's giving an approval. The numbering is for them to be able to prepare their report, and so they can match what they have found, the status on the ground, versus when we go back, if there are any changes. So the whole aspect of regularization, relocation will continue, and this is an ongoing process. And similarly, another myth, because I like the questions and some of the comments that I see, I try to hit them head on, so you don't have to worry in terms of the answer. Another myth sometimes persons say is that when they see allocations being done or they see a squatting area being addressed, it's being said then that is being done at the displacement of the persons who are pending applicants or who are awaiting legitimately and done the right thing. We have a program that we're working with. We have a robust program, and I'll also speak to, when I come to policies, I'll come speak to what our plan or long-term plan in terms of regularization and squatting. I want to therefore come to ownership. Yes, you see persons allocated. Yes, you see persons are able to access their area, their land, and that is from the survey department. There's another aspect that involves where persons have to sign for their agreement of sales, as well as for the processing of their title. That's an activity very often that takes place behind the scene. So when an allocation is done, it's not the end of it. There's another set of work that is involved. And the similar staff that is doing the allocation, the similar staff is involved in completing this aspect. That is to ensure ownership is done. And so the work never stops. In the year of 2024, we have processed more than 7,118 titles. We have therefore increased by 113% of what we have accomplished in the prior year, meaning 2023. To date, therefore, we have processed over 14,710 titles, certificate of titles. Let me repeat that, 14,710. And that does not include, as I speak, there's another close to 2,500 certificate of to process for certificate of titles that is at the land registrar, awaiting to be signed off and going through its check and balance processes. So you have another 25 that within this month that will be available for distribution, and that work is ongoing. So the signing of to be able to process titles is something we are proud of in terms of our accomplishment, because this too has been part of when you read the comments and the complaints about awaiting to have ownership. We have worked assiduously with our legal department as well as a number of agencies that are involved, and I want to point them out. Gaisuco, Guyana Sugar Corporation, Guyana Lands and Survey Commission, NISIL, because as well as MMA for Region 5. Those are the main agencies that we've been working closely with to allow us to be able to process the ownership of the land and to have them transferred legally, so that then we can move on to for the processing of the certificate of title, which involves prior to that for the signing of their agreements. And so I'm pleased to say we're moving in this regard, and this 2025 we will work assiduously to bring on par many of those areas that are expected. So for example, persons in Region 3 that have been asking and who have been allocated their lands in this January month, number of 2 areas will commence processing for their ownership. What was done, and if one was to do a comparison of prior to 2020, from 2015 to 2020, the APN UAFC government processed. So what we accomplished in 2024 was what they did for 5 years. In fact, I'll give you the figure, 7,713. So what we did in 1 year is what they did in 5 years. And allow me therefore to move on to another aspect. This was not a manifesto commitment. What we committed was allocation of lots. But we are a government that wants to push home ownership. We want to also ensure that persons are able to access their new home as quickly as possible. Not everyone is in a position to be able to do their own construction or building. When I say not in a position, I mean physically, or not be having the necessary time. So they go into the bank and you get an approval for a mortgage. So I come here now to our housing program, or houses construction. And yes, we have seen some criticism, and rightfully so. Yes, we have seen some criticism in terms of work, quality of work done, and this is something we've strengthened in terms of the housing unit, the monitoring team for the housing unit. But it does not take away the impact from the construction of those houses. So for example, in completed houses, not houses in progress, completed houses, we have invested over $12.5 billion for the completion of over 1,671 houses. And I'm speaking of the housing program on the coast. This is specifically the housing program on the coast. In various categories too. You have low income, moderate income, and let me give you the figure for the completion in categories, so we'll understand too that we are not leaving anyone behind. Every segment of our population has an opportunity for equal access for home ownership. So for example, if one is to look at the various categories, low income, 867 homes have been completed under the low income bracket. This means this is home completed, keys handed over. Moderate income, 398. Middle income, 138. Young professionals, 330. Core home under the Urban Adequate Housing and Urban Accessibility Program, 82 in total houses have been handed over. So in all, that will give you a total of 1,865 houses. In 2024, we have invested on houses for completion of houses, $4.3 billion. So of that 12.5, 4.3 was for 2024, and that therefore saw the handing over in total of over 550 houses in 2024. That's 550 families who have been able to occupy a new area, their new home, their new space, and to have that level of comfort and not have to worry about the hassle about landlords, in-laws issues. Well, in this job, you're confronted daily with all kinds of social issues, and you'll hear all kinds of reasons for requests. Similarly, just to give you an idea what's currently in progress, we have another 1,724 houses that are in progress. So those are at various stages, and by the middle of this year, all of those are expected to be completed. And I'm not even referring to new homes that are commencing. So for example, up to yesterday, we would have had another 20 young professional houses were allocated to be commenced. In the hinterland housing program, we started off with a $1 billion hinterland housing program targeting 400 houses. To date, we have expended over $750 million on this program, and that is being implemented in regions 1, 7, 8, and 9, and over 100 of those houses have been handed over in regions 1 and 9, and the work continues to complete the rest of the hinterland housing program. Quickly, if I can go on, because I want to allow you to ask as much questions as you can too. If I can move onwards to policies. We're implementing a very robust housing program. Mandated, yes, but also a commitment by your government to ensure that we can raise the level of standard of living for our people and all our citizens, and therefore home ownership is one of those benchmarks. So as a result, we have embarked on a new national housing policy. And that housing policy, as I speak, we're committed, as I said, what's the overarching of that policy? To ensure that persons are able to have a safe, affordable, and adequate housing in various communities that are serviced by the relevant infrastructure. That is what we want to achieve. So as it is right now, we have a consultant who is developing the policy, and very shortly, sometime in a new week, that presentation will be made to us in-house with the ministers and team, by which time we will want to take to Cabinet a draft policy document for adaptation, and then obviously move onwards to a national level. Once we have that approval, to move onwards at a national level to be adopted from parliamentary level. So we have work that is ongoing in terms of a national housing policy, and what it involves is reviewing the existing policies and programs and processes that are currently implemented by CHPA. Stakeholders consultations have already been done, a fair level have been done, and that is ongoing. So what's the need assessment based on the stakeholders' feedback that is being compiled, and likewise, as I said, move on to the terms of reference for a national housing policy. The second policy I want to tell you that we're working on under the housing program, coming back to community development and coming back to regularization and informal settlements, is the strategy for informal settlements, upgrading and prevention. Let me repeat, a strategy for informal settlements, upgrading and prevention. Where are we with this? The first phase of this is complete. That work is complete, and so sometime in this month, we are expected to present meaning from the minister's level. We will take to cabinet at that first phase the draft strategy, and then obviously for adaptation, feedback from governmental level, policy level, and it is our intention when we have a finalization from cabinet, we then move onwards obviously for a national adaptation. And so that strategy in the first phase involves, we have done a 100% analysis in terms of Region 3, and that's the pilot region that we've started with, and obviously we'll move on to the other areas. And so the work is ongoing, and there's a consultant who is involved in this exercise. And should you ask any questions, I'll be free to give any other information that you may want. I want to update you quickly on a program, a President Ali initiative, and that is, you would have heard about the Steel and Cement, the housing subsidy program. To date, the impact of this program, which aids and helps in terms of commencement for construction of houses for first-time homeowners, persons who would want that little initiative to help them to start or even to support them. And so to date, we have expended over $370 million on this program for a total of over 1,478 vouchers issued to the various regions. Obviously, Region 4 will be the highest, and so Region 4, $119 million overall, with 476 vouchers issued. In the year of 2024, we've invested on this program $129 million to issue 516 vouchers on this program. Here again is another Government of Guyana initiative that injects into directly an investment that aids in terms of home ownership. I now move on quickly to a bit on terms of our infrastructure and make a general comment. All of these on the soft side, I call this the soft side, meaning allocation, processing of titles, dealing with squatters, etc., cannot be complete without the physical aspect. And that is the work that is done by our project department in terms of the infrastructure development. And the project department too, from the outset, may I say, except for a foreign funded project which may mandate as part of the conditionality, except for that, all our local projects, our Government of Guyana projects, are designed in-house by our project team, designed and implemented in-house by our project department of CHP. What's the big point in all of that? In addition to what I've just said, it also means it saves millions of dollars, well, I would want to say by this stage, hundreds of millions of dollars in work that will normally have to go out to consultants. That is done in-house by our project team. They have done, for 2024, over 65.7 kilometers of roads upgrade to asphaltic concrete surfaces to a number of areas, and I can list them out for you. As well as, we've been able to initiate as well as construct more than 9.1 kilometers of 4-lane macro roads, and the evidence is there across regions 3 and 4. The investment there alone is over $23 million on highways. And similarly, for 2024, the project team was able to commence and in some areas complete developmental works in 19 schemes. These include Palmyra, Wales, Good Hope, Block F Phase 1 and 2, Block E Phase 1 and 2, LBI Phase 3, Two Friends Phase 1 and 2, Lusignan Phase 1 and 2, Nonpareil Phase 2, Enterprise Phase 2, Yarra Cabra, Block A Waterloo, Amelia's Ward Squatting Area, Fitzhope, Amelia's Ward Residential Area Phase 4, Harrooni. In all, for 2024, so while our budget on housing and water went over $100 billion in summation, on investment on the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure side, is over $77 billion in 2024. So when one receives their lot, and when we say that the average cost to develop the infrastructure in front of a potential resident or a lot is $5 million, what do we mean? If we mean the utilities that also have to go there, that has to pass, because the electricity and the water in the new areas, the distribution system, that is done part of the project team's work through CHP. And likewise, the drainage and irrigation, and as I said, the road network. $5 million on average to develop an average citizen, their lot, their infrastructure work in front of where they will reside. So when one asks, or there's an expectation to say that we charge a minimal fee for the lands, that's heavily subsidized. And no doubt, as a country, we become much more in terms of ability, will be further heavier subsidized. So the land cost that one pays is minimal to what is required to give them access to their new area. And for the very first time, I will want to add, for the very first time, we are close on par with allocations and the infrastructure work being done in the areas. Because you are members of the media and you know of the complaints where persons would have said in the past for East Bank, for example, would have waited 2 years. Would have been waiting a very long period. Now we are getting close to that level where the work is happening simultaneously as the area is going to be allocated. And for 2025 will be no different of our expectations based on allocations and the areas that they are currently designing for new areas for which we want to go out to allocate. The final figure I want to give you on the infrastructure, they have for 2024, whether you talk about design, procured, and executed, 819 projects. That was done by our community development department. Some other business, any other business? We still continue to have and receive a number of complaints of persons who fall prey to fraudulent activities. Last week, and by today or tomorrow, a reappearance of an ad will be in the papers. We have two aspects I want to highlight among many. One, that's the most popular one. You have a lot of fraud through where invitation to pay through MMG. An MMG service, a number is provided and you're asked to pay over. That's one. And secondly, in terms of commercial lands, you have a lot of persons who profess to has land that is available for commercial purposes. that is available to be sold. So I want to warn our listeners to not be duped. There is only one way in which for commercial land, that's a process, is that you have to put in your proposal, and then periodically we have review, you're contacted, and then you pay that at Central Housing and Planning Authority. And in fact, commercial lands are paid at the central office. For the residential lots, at our regional offices or central offices, or only if we have what is called like the Dream Realize sanction activities. If you're paying anywhere else, then it can't be to the government of Guyana, and it can't be to Central Housing and Planning, and can't be Ministry of Housing and Water. We've had instances, we've had to forward many cases. Of course, for those cases to move to a level that we want for prosecution, the police will tell you, then we need statement. But when it gets to that aspect, we don't get to the final stage very often for prosecution. And so persons have to be bold. If you're duped, you have to be bold to come out to say X, Y, Z, but they can only do this if you give a statement, because that is what is used in a court of law. And the very final thing I want to comment on is in terms of Silica City, we have, as you've seen presented at the Building Expo, we have completed the master plan. That is complete. One aspect you see ongoing currently, where we are building 110 houses, and that is ongoing. But the master plan has been completed for over 3,000 acres of land. And so the various aspects that is involved in putting together to ensure that we are able to expand, this is an ongoing exercise. But the work that is involved in terms of Silica City continues, and one certainly moving forward under this PVP tenure, you will see in a major physical way the enhancement on the Silica City. So I've paused here. I thank you very much for your patience, and certainly for members of the media, we cannot help but showing our appreciation for your work that you do in helping to highlight and to bring to fore many of the things we are doing. Thank you very much.